All right. So I mentioned this right before we were recording that I'm just sort of like making this the Jibber Jabber Jambalaya for July. This is actually sort of an epilogue, a sequel, uh, refinement, second edition. I don't know. It relates to the June Jibber Jabber Jambalaya, which Evan and I had a discussion about some of the educational material that Friends of CC Music is planning on producing. And Jason is in our sort of like informal arrangement, sort of Evan's advisor, his mentor for the summer. And Jason basically said, "I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about." Is that more or less paraphrased it well, Jason?
That is a precise paraphrase as far as I'm concerned.
So I was like, well, we should fix that. And so that's what this is. This is us trying to fix this. So maybe this will be short. Maybe not. I don't know. Jason and I've had a little bit of back and forth, just sort of like, so we could sort of frame the discussions um, for what is tonight as we record. And I invited other folks to come and ask questions as well. Let's sort of like all get on a baseline so we can all work together. And then Jessica has joined us as well. And so Jessica is. I'm not going to say you're an expert. If you want to say you're an expert, then you can do that. But you have spoken about these things at conferences of people that have probably paid to hear you speak about them. So that's expert enough for me. Uh, so anyway, I'm glad you're here, Jessica. Um, and yeah, I don't know that we will be the things we'll talk about will be new and interesting enough to need a lot of like legal and business insight. We're really going to try to focus on the basics, but um, this field is moving so fast that um, it's it's hard not to talk about kind of where we are now, even when talking about basic sorts of things. One thing that I noticed in the discussions, Jason, is I'm not sure, and this maybe needs to be a whole nother maybe class. And I don't want to get into like a Friends of CC Music like pedagogical discussion, like what we want to teach and how we want to teach it and stuff. Um, but I do want to sort of tease apart something that I thought I was seeing in your questions, and I think there might be um, I don't know what exactly what the word is, but and I don't think this is at all related to just you. This is actually something that I think Evan was having um, maybe some problems with initial or some confusion about initially. But there is an application, and then there is, some sort of like machine learning, and that application that has a user interface may have other things in it that are not actually machine learning. So specifically, we were talking about the Creative Commons licensing, and we didn't go into a lot of detail, me and Evan, and sort of like how we were thinking through that. So I'm not surprised that people might have been confused about that, but I wasn't envisioning any sort of a licensing thing um, as coming from the any sort of like Gen AI. I think I guess maybe the Gen AI thing is maybe where the breakdown is because the stuff we were talking about what is a classification task. Like I mean, and really like a really simple one, like does it match or does it not match? Just is it this thing? Is it not this thing? Um, and so I, that's a very different from building up something based on some sort of corpus. Um, so I don't. I guess I would kind of maybe be interested to hear a little bit more about what you were thinking, Jason, when you were listening to that, because you might have some interesting ideas about things that like we just weren't talking about, but they might be worth you know uh, going through the things that the way that you might do the type of thing that you were talking about. So does that make sense?
Um, yeah, when thinking about revisiting um, your conversation with Evan last night, there was a part of the conversation where it seemed to me as if maybe there was a way for machine learning to be applied, perhaps not to differentiate between different types of Creative Commons licenses, but maybe in regards to the intent of a certain usage by a creator. Maybe they were trying to use it for one thing, and the principle behind the actual license is actually for something else. And I don't necessarily know if, in fact, a certain sort of rubric can be embedded within the machine learning to pick up on that type of thing.
Okay, I think as you if you said that I may be understanding what you're thinking, or in like sort of the way. So um so basically the idea would be that artists are just picking say BYNCSA because it's a license that a lot of other people use, and they don't maybe know. And so I think you're kind of talking about like a recommendation engine, really. So you're saying these are the things that you want out of your license, and other musicians that want those sort of those things out of the license, they tend to pick this type of license. Is that
Right,
okay?
right.
Yeah. Um, that's interesting. I think I think the problem with that, and maybe this is something I don't know, Jessica, how much like actual training of models you've done, but um, to me, my thought is uh, you probably it'd be hard. First of all, it'd be hard to collect that data. Um, but even if you kind of if you did at some level collect some data, um, I think a lot of the licenses are maybe set it and forget it. And so if you had a platform where you had um, musicians answer like three questions when they uploaded it, um, you'd also have to go back and say this is why I picked this license. You'd also have to go back like some years later and say, did it? Oh, okay. Now I'm on here twice. I don't know what happened. Uh, there, that was weird. I guess the other me will die. I didn't lose like power or anything. It just like Jitsi just like went away. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly where it crashed, but so I was saying that you need to basically collect some information when they submitted it and say these are the reasons why I'm picking this. But then you'd also need to follow up at some point in the future, and I mean I don't know how far that would be, and say, did the license work for you? and then I mean, because otherwise, I don't know that it's exactly a self-fulfilling prophecy, but you've kind of got the same idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, everybody's just picking it because they think it does this thing, and then you just keep feeding it more. Well, this is what we think it does, and you actually haven't solved anything. Um, so I definitely think that would be doable, like theoretically, but implementing something like that would be um, again, like I think we would need to have somebody like CC Mixter. Well, CC Mixter is a bad example, but even though I love them, they don't allow all the licenses. And for anybody who is not familiar with this quirk of CC Mixter, the reason why that uh, they don't allow the share alike license is that they're a platform where they remix, so they believe it's just sort of like built in. Um, my personal belief is like this sort of like ignores the rest of the internet unnecessarily, but that's the way they've always done it. So I guess it would be kind of weird to change it, 20 years into their history. But I mean, maybe in some ways it's better because um, you know maybe there's just fewer licenses that people would can pick from. So um, maybe the thoughts about those particular licenses would be um, you we don't have like you know billions of data points. So sort of maybe concentrating on a few licenses maybe is not terrible. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it could be interesting. I think Tribe of Noise slash FMA is not, they're not hard to get a hold of, but um, if we were to go with them, they'd need to see some sort of like business outcome. Um, they're very, I mean, which I mean, part of me is like, yeah, we have a community where we're like, you know, CC kind of has this like slightly, well, Evan and I talked about this a bit as well for, for anybody that wants to go back and watch that hasn't. But there is a certain non-commercial element to the scene. So it kind of their focus on money kind of is kind of like meh to me. But at the same time, like the whole reason why the FMA exists with Tribe of Noise instead of with WFMU is because WFMU couldn't afford to keep it running. So the financial situation is an important one to keep in mind. So there is that. But yeah, we're probably getting too far into the like um, we're if we haven't already crossed the precipice, getting close on the planning stage, which I don't want to turn this into a planning discussion, but yeah, I think that um, would be doable, but that yeah, that was not what Evan and I were actually talking about. We were talking about something much more simple. So um, yeah, I mean, I guess. And I don't know, like, if there's, if you have a time, Jason, or the inclination to do any of the, like, how much you want to dig into the ML stuff. Did I send you the YouTube video that that Evan sent me that he watched that he found to be useful? It was about an hour long. Um, I can't
I did
remember.
get that.
Okay.
Yeah, I did get that. I broke that into two parts,
Oh yeah, that
and
was the one
probably,
where he's very excited. I think he's maybe might
yeah,
be
yeah,
more like
very
excited
excited.
for life than for AI. I think that just might be his like YouTube persona. Like Well, I mean, who wants I mean, unless your shtick is being like emo, then like, probably people want to, like an exciting personality on to watch videos. So, I don't know the guy. That's the only video I've seen, but I got the impression that like he's an actor and that's his on-screen persona. So,
it was very Mad Money in terms of its delivery.
yeah, yeah,
That's what it made me think of.
yeah. It wasn't bad, but yeah, he was excited. So,
Yeah, it,
um,
it was a lot.
yeah. So yeah, did you get through the second part?
I did get through the
Okay.
second part.
Yeah. Hell.
Through the second part, it was it was I think a bit easier for me to grasp a hold of, and then I was able to um, listen to the link you sent me for the Practical AI podcast.
Uh,
I actually heard that prior to returning to your convo with Evan. So I had a lot of time to sit with a couple of concepts, particularly in terms of what the good folks at Practical AI were talking about with their guests, making sure you get closer to the truth with whatever sort of machine learning that you're giving, by making sure that the data you're feeding into it comes from a versatile and diverse audience background. The more diverse your audience, the closer you're probably going to come to a far more valid theorem that comes out of the other end.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna
Uh,
depend on the. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, Jason, that is true when you're dealing with an unsupervised learning
Hmm.
um, algorithm, um, dealing with a lot of unknowns and unsupervised. But if you have a supervised learning to start, which is where you train on a known data set and you have known desired outcomes and you train very specifically, um, then that's not necessarily the case. I think technically about what you're going back to your original question and the roundabout answer Doug was wandering through, which is it's more complex but probably could be done, is that it would involve a machine learning algorithm that was a combined supervised and then reinforced learning, a two question set, a supervised learning for the initial questioning and outputs to the user of the system, and then a feedback loop later on through a reinforced, um, so that the algorithm could learn from the feedback that it was given. Like, we recommended X, did that work for you? Um, was that what you wanted? That kind of structure. It would be um, a hybrid algorithm underlying what you're talking about doing.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and the truth thing, I mean, can go a lot of different ways. I mean, the way that a lot of people have been kind of doing that is doing what's called a RAG. You basically have a graph, a knowledge graph in front of your LLM. So, um, and it depends because again, like the LLM, when you're talking about Gen AI, like people talk about like hallucinations being like basically a bug, but no, I mean like
No,
the hallucination is that's what it is.
that's what
Like
it generates.
that's what Gen is. That's the hallucination. If you just wanted to spit out what it already had, then it wouldn't be generating anything.
It'd be a search engine.
Right, exactly. So that's basically what a RAG is at some level. Is it's a search engine in front of your LLM. So um, yeah, I think the whole the Chat GPT Gen AI thing, I think has re- I don't know if confused is the right word, but like it's just like sticking a big old spotlight in people's faces, and so they can't see all the other things that are like going on that are like not Gen A. And it doesn't help that like marketing wise, like all these companies they just say AI on like everything. They don't tell you like, I mean, and at some level it's like, do they really need to tell you how they're doing it? I mean, but like it's frustrating because when you actually want to like try to do stuff and you want to do something like a classification problem, and then we have these scenarios. Again, I'm not I mean, this is good to have this. I'm glad you brought this up, Jason, because this is a good conversation to have. Like, people think about things in Gen AI now, and then they miss the like simple classification. This is the whole point why that we wanted to have this, is because I don't see this getting any better unless people work to like like rein it back in. Like I don't know what the big tech companies, I don't know that they have anything to gain by like trying to solve this problem. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but if they can just like, oh, you're confused, buy our stuff, seems like maybe that would be in their best interest. So maybe I'm too cynical. I don't know, but um, yeah, it's a complex topic that that's got like 70 years of academic research behind it, 70-ish, 75, something like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not, we're not going to solve it for everybody in even this one course that Evan's putting together. So but I guess that's the thing that maybe is the clearest thing on the guidance is, um, I pressed the button I didn't mean to press, which you guys probably don't even know that, but people on the YouTube will have seen that it popped onto my video. Um, if I knew how to do it, it'd be good to know what button does that, but I don't remember what button I pressed. But yeah, I guess the main thing is, um, we we're probably not going to want to do anything with Gen AI. Maybe we will. I don't know, but I feel like for Friends of CC Music, there's so much antagonism um, about Gen AI, like taking work away from artists, that I think it's probably something that we should just stay away from in general. I mean, if we have a really clear use case, then maybe, but um, I feel like there's probably a lot of low hanging fruit that where we wouldn't need that. And again, that maybe is more like probably not a Monday discussion, because that one will be you know net label week focused, but um, maybe for the August meeting that would be something that we would want to discuss. But um, yeah, I don't know. And maybe I was talking about like studying abroad in Mathland being sort of like the focus. I mean, maybe we need to be. Um, I guess this is still getting more into the strategy conversation, but I'm going to say it anyway. Maybe we do need to be more clear with, as far as our naming, um, and just like exclude the Gen AI. Although at the same time, like it's kind of like I didn't actually send this. I don't know what. Oh, I guess it's a toot on Mastodon. Your initial post. I didn't quite finish it. I didn't get enough characters on here, but I have it up on my screen right now. And it says, know your enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in peril. Sun Tzu. And so I think even the people that hate Gen AI, maybe there is something to be learned. And like if we just completely ignore it, then maybe that's not great either. I don't know, but if I really wish I knew what was going on with the Jitsi. This has never happened before. This is so weird. I mean, I was on for what, like 5 hours on Saturday. Didn't get kicked off
At least.
once. I've gotten kicked off like 3 times. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Chrome just needs a reboot after this. But yeah, I mean, title wise, again, maybe a topic for another way. But I think maybe we should just be very clear that we're at the very least not focusing on Gen AI. I don't know that pretending like it doesn't exist does anybody any favors, but yeah, I'd really like to stay away from that, just because I don't think we have a lot to gain from it, and B, I think that you know um, it could just make people mad at us. I don't think. I mean, whatever. I mean, at some level, it's like if you need to make people mad for the right reasons and whatever, make people mad. But I'm not convinced. Maybe somebody convince me later that there's a purpose for us. Like one. Like I so my I think both of you know this, but my father-in-law recently passed away, and his diploma, nobody knew exactly like you know what his degree was in, and like that school had changed names and stuff because of the war and stuff. So I had Gemini translate it for me. And like I don't speak Vietnamese, like like I literally know, like I think the word for coffee is coffee because the word for coffee is coffee in like literally every language. But aside from that, and then like tea is either tea or chai in every language. So I got those two, but like otherwise don't speak any Vietnamese. So but Gemini was able to pull that out and able to give us some information about the institution, which still was a little unclear whether at the time of his diploma whether it was considered a 4-year institution or not. But that was really useful, and like I think it was helpful, while everybody was like grieving, to just have like to be able to like put that kind of stuff in the obituary without like feeling like they were just making stuff up. That was pretty helpful, and like we obviously knew that like there could be the opportunity for it to be wrong, but we had enough knowledge to kind of like it made sense. So I think especially with like translation stuff, um, I don't know that it's the great Satan or anything, but I do think there probably are some issues with the amount of electricity that all of this stuff takes, but you know, a lot of things take a lot of electricity. So, um, you know, uh, I don't know, a topic for another day probably, but uh, yeah, I just don't see for us the Gen AI. I mean, maybe translation is a thing, but I don't know that. Again, we don't have a specific topic of like the things that we want to translate and stuff. Like maybe that's a thing we could do at another time. Um, anyway, I've babbled on about Gen AI and how I don't think we should associate too closely with it long enough. So, um, Jason, we'll get back to the topic at hand and specific. I guess if there were specific things from from that video that you still didn't understand, we could try to go through some of those.
was checking my notes in terms of things that I wrote down that really stuck out to me the first time that I watched it. Um, I guess I'm just ruminating on how best to serve the community within Creative Commons and even outside of it. Because ultimately, I think, even right from the beginning, we were talking about how such learning can truly benefit the indie artists,
Yeah.
of which we had two in our presence in the form of Alex Temple and CDOC on Saturday, and it was just honestly really good to hear things from the perspective of an artist. Sometimes they will bring an outsider perspective on things if you're kind of dancing around theory a lot. They bring in and kind of breathe some fresh air into a conversation. I mean, there were during the conversation with Evan, there were the examples with CC Mixter in terms of them being a collaborative community, uploading those original stems in order to create new works. Um, what sort of surveillance that FMA might run in terms of a scan on works when they were uploaded, in terms of determining the license. That was something that I thought about,
Yeah.
because I hadn't really, in the whole entire time that I had been on the FMA, and I had been, fooling around with that since FMU was in the mix and it was still in beta mode. Not once did I think about, you know, something running on the back end that was scanning the type of, or detecting the type of license that a particular song might have or be aligned with.
I got dropped
But
again.
yeah, those were just some of the things I was thinking about. But the FMA thing, that also kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I don't think any of them are doing that now. I mean, we've
Mm,
talked about in the community for years, having some way, and I think I brought up blockchain and smart contracts in the talk with Evan, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. But for years, we've talked about having some way to, you know, basically enforce the license. I mean, YouTube could do it very easily with their remix. They only allow attribution licensing, but if they had if they allowed the SA, then they could say, "Hey, yeah, you can remix this, but you can only remix this if you also have this license." Like that would be a really easy thing for them to do once they have it in their system, and
mm,
they're not doing it. But Jamindo, the FMA, CC Mixter, they could do that kind of stuff. Of course, CC Mixter, as I already noted, they don't use the SA, so that wouldn't be a specific thing that they were trying to do. Um, but and there's a few different ways to look at this too. Is like you could think of it as a way to limit what folks can do, and that's kind of the way um, that it's mostly been presented. But it could also be used as a way to um, provide prompt the artist to go go talk to the original artist. Like it doesn't have to be like a sort of like a draconian, no, you can't do this. Yes, you have to do this sort of thing. It could just be a like, hey, we see you use this, the artist whose work you're using, their contact information is here, or maybe they're on the same platform. Would you like to message them and tell them that you use their work? It could be something like that. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But if you're not detecting that the stuff has been repurposed in some way, then like that's the first step. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like there's the application you build on top of this information, but you have to do the waveform. And again, a lot of people just don't think about like that sort of stuff being AI anymore. But like that sort of that still falls in the AI category, being able to match those waveforms. So um, yeah, I mean, and I think we can dream up all of the different scenarios we want, but ultimately, like the developers that we do have are like fighting to keep the sites alive that we've got. So as far as any implementation, um, we're gonna have to get them involved. But I think that part of the reason for doing, and this is potentially going to be the first of many, but if we are able to build up those types of skills, and not just the AIML, that was just one that we had that we picked for Evan, but you know any sort of computer language, but I think for our audience, something like Python, would be a good place to start. Like if we're able to build up those sorts of skills in the community, then we can start using those skills in the community. I mean, some of the stuff we talked about was um, like survival, skills and stuff, which I think are maybe a little less, like build something to share with the community. But like, hey, you get caught in a snowstorm in Wyoming in January and you survive to produce more music. Well, hey, that's benefited the community because you survived to produce more music. So, I think Omar was particularly interested in that one because it was kind of wild and crazy, and he likes that kind of stuff. Um, and but you know, uh, ultimately, I think the courses should be like a service to the community. So if that's what people want, then that's what we should do. But yeah, I definitely think that like maybe like product design. I mean, that's not something that I have like any sort of like. I mean, anybody that's seen anything that I produced knows that that's not really a skill set that I have. Um, but yeah, if we want to build these things, like the thing that the thing that frustrates me about, because we've had this Spotify conversation like I don't know 20 times in the last year. And the thing that I think Jitsy's going to get on my Spotify list here if it keeps doing this to me. The thing that frustrates me about that is that, um, like, we need to do the things like build up like the infrastructure skills and the fundraising skills, like all of these things that we don't have right now. We need to build those up before we can really like um, even think about like by the time we're in a place to like do something like that in like 5-10 years, like is Spotify even going to be the dominant platform? Like maybe we're chasing ghosts. And so i I think we really need to get this educational stuff off the ground and see where we can see where we can take it, and then like once we have some skills, figure out what we can do with it. But right now we just don't have them. So um, yeah, I mean, and I think that's why that we had that conversation. I think everybody on that call was really into it because I think I think people see that there are some skills that we lack as a community. And this kind of came up in the chat on Saturday, um, but something that newer sort of entrants in the CC community might not pick up is that 20 years ago the open source community and the CC community were very, very closely knit, and we did have a lot more developers in the community, and we did have a lot more things being built that were interesting, like specifically for CC music, because those people were in the community. And the communities have diverged at this point, and some of that is because open source has gotten more corporate. Some of that is probably because of streaming. There's probably a lot of reasons for it. Um, but we don't have that sort of basis um, that we used to have. I'm checking on a couple of the cats here. Oh, okay, it's Arlo. Arlo and Odie usually are pretty quiet when they play. They usually play pretty hard, but I guess they've decided that they want to start making noise. I'm not worried about those two because they're just like, I don't know, they're just like boxing or something. They're not going to hurt each other. I'm not worried about them. If it was Odie and Raylan, though, then I'd probably have to separate them because, yeah, Raylan would probably kill Odie. Anyway, yeah. I don't know if you guys could hear the cats like screaming at each other, but uh, yeah, Raylan is part of the drama club. So he and T'Challa both have to get medicated before they go to the vet. Um, so they like to make a lot of noise. Raylan, 12-pound cat, not so much going to murder the vet. T'Challa, 60-pound pit bull, more likely to murder a vet. Um, so yeah. Anyway, so I guess the main point here, to get back to that, Jason, was for you having a sense of, sort of guiding Evan through the, we'll say, remaining month, although I don't know if it's quite the remaining 3 weeks of the summer. Do you feel like we've gotten to a place where you're more confident helping with that stuff?
Maybe like 1/16
Well,
but I'm listening. But the more that I listen to, the the material that you've presented to me through both YouTube as well as the podcast, the more that I'm involved within talks like this, even though I feel like a detached observer looking in, I think that there is more information that I can pull together from the analytical way of thinking about how just being able to implement something that is strictly an A to B sort of a process, and think about how to make a certain program run with the results that you want, but not start off with something super complicated or convoluted at the beginning that it becomes that much more difficult to get the results that you want. I remember very clearly the that moment within the chat on Saturday that you had just mentioned in regards to the pulling apart or the splitting up of the communities between CC and open source. And it's easy to see it when you hang out on Mastodon. One of the things that I liked about Mastodon, it just seemed as if There were a lot of these people who were embracing open source, and there were a lot of people who were tech developers who also happened to be musicians, or tech developers who very clearly liked music. And because of that, they were doing something where they were trying to see how everyone could get their needs met, how the music makers and the music lovers could find something to champion in regards to some of these alternatives to Spotify or even to Bandcamp, because they're trying to think about how do we fulfill these needs and still do it through an ethical perspective. But even while I'm getting excited about all of that, it's very evident that a lot of those open source developers aren't necessarily talking about things within a Creative Commons context. And it's not even necessarily within the outer fringes of their conversations or present or future plans that they share, be it on Mastodon or in other places. So even while I'm seeing all of that, I'm trying to see how best I cannot be a complete and total disservice to Evan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think your role is largely like, you know, the CC ambassador. He's the expert on the on the stuff that he's putting together. So, and I think that he's taught that basic stuff for like, well, I don't know how many years he's taught the AP courses, but he's been teaching for 11 years. So, um, it's for him just sort of like meeting the audience. That's the problem, that he doesn't know the community, and it's not a format, putting it online, with which he's a high school teacher. He stands up at the front of the classroom and writes on probably a dry erase board, probably not a chalkboard, but um, you know, um, that's very different than, okay, here's stuff that people in Afghanistan are gonna pull down on the internet, and you have like, how good's their English, like how like that sort of like the whole world is your audience sort of thing, is like very different than, okay, these are the folks from the community where I've lived for, in his case, like 33 years of his life. So just and even if you feel like you're sort of a stranger in a strange land as far as the CC community, Jason, you're like much more knowledgeable about it than Evan is. So, um, yeah, I was trying to see here, if I could figure out like a good point on the CC blog to sort of like point to where some of that broke down. I'm not seeing like a search tool that will just do their blog, but Creative Commons, HQ, creativecommons.org, they used to do, help do things like they, and promote, like Wired had like, put out a disc of CC music, and they used to, promote things, in the music world, and now their most recent, blog entries are the next chapter, strengthening a Creative Commons community together. Okay, that's not bad, but it's not about music. Understanding CC licenses and AI training. Okay, we're talking about AI training at some level as well. A legal primer. I mean, that's not bad, but again, it's not about music. YCC signals and update. Um, and then I guess I'll skip one since that one was kind of vague. Introducing CC signals, a new social contract for the age of AI. Okay, again, AI, interesting, not about music. Recommended licenses and tools for cultural heritage content. Okay, I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but it's not music. Um, and like, there's a few more things on here that I could read out, but I'm not going to bore everybody with that. There's nothing about music on this page. Like, there probably hasn't been anything on that page about music in like 11 years. So,
Well, Doug, Creative Commons is a license. It's about licensing. It's not about music.
yeah, well, I mean, they used to do that though. That's the thing. So,
Mm.
um, you know, Eric Stoyer, who now works at Kickstarter, he was like their music person. Um, so, um, I think when they were saying, like, hey, this is a thing that we do, music is part of what we do, then people were a little more engaged. And yeah, that now it's you know, they do a lot of the things like the cultural heritage content, which is fine. And actually, one of the things that's kind of always frustrated me about like that sort of stuff is like music is part of cultural heritage. So and it's the same thing with like people would say things like, well, now Creative Commons is they're all about education. It's like, okay, well, I mean, there is music education. So CCHQ is they do have a drive for having the community, yeah, strengthening the Creative Commons community together. This might be like the blog post about their surveys and trying to get community feedback. So they are now trying to get community feedback about the directions that they should take. So that is something that people should definitely um, let them know that there are people that are still interested in Creative Commons music that you know um, just because there's not big headlines about Napster anymore, that doesn't mean that the issues have gone away. So um, I don't know who is to blame for that. Again, uh, I think we'd be in, well, I mean, this is silly to say, anybody that's been around for a while, but it needs to be said for anybody that's new. If the FMA had not, well, if WFMU had not sold the FMA to Kicksplit, then we wouldn't be. Maybe we would still be in a bad place at some point. I don't know, but if we had been able to fund the FMA, and I wasn't involved in any of that. I think if the WFMU had said, "Hey, this is a problem. We need funds," and people had banded together, um, then who knows? Maybe we could have gotten Creative Commons still involved if we had a strong FMA. But no strong FMA. Nobody's carrying that torch. It's basically like like any sort of like you know human diaspora. It's like your place is destroyed from famine, and then everybody is like scattered among the planet, like looking, like that's basically where we're at in the CC community. And now we're trying to bring that, diaspora back. We're trying to like reclaim our own CC music heritage in a way. So yeah, I mean, I wish, obviously there's a lot of things we would like to go back in time and change, but I really wish we had known like how much we were losing, and maybe we could have done more in 2018 to keep what we had. Um,
Doug, Doug, for the real new people here, by FMA, are you referring to the Free Music Archive?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's a history lesson worth going through. So the FMA was created in 2009 by the WFMU, so that they would have a catalog of music that they could play on their internet radio. And it was curated. So podcasts and net labels would upload generally not entire catalogs, but in some cases net labels might do that. But basically they would pick things out and kind of use the FMA. Uh, all right. So in the like 5 seconds that I was offline there, uh, you know what maybe would be good is if I maybe others maybe we could get like people that are involved with these sites now um, to do like Jamendo, CC Mixter, FMA. Those are the big hitters, but there's probably others that. Well, I don't think about them, even though they're super awesome, but they're sort of more directed at the French-speaking world. But Dogmazique, definitely, and they'd be willing to do it. They're super awesome, but I always forget about them just um, because the audience is a little bit different. Um, but uh, but yeah, maybe I should try to get them to like do little like 2 minute histories. And then we can like reference those for people because all of those sites have like long histories, 15, 16 year histories at this point. Um, so yeah, that would be good. Thinking about education, thinking about cultural heritage. Maybe we should keep track of our own cultural heritage. Um, I never really thought about things like this, but it's sort of an interesting perspective on community building. So, um, so I will take that as an action item um, from this. But yeah, so I guess Jason, are you thinking it's just a time thing? Do you just need to spend time with the material? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
spending time with the material. I kind of wish I had registered for that first feedback session for Creative Commons while they were
Oh
introducing
yeah.
CC signals. When you talked about that, I mean, just a little bit in terms of that one blog post. CEO says CC signals designed to sustain the commons in the age of AI. Just as CC licenses help build the open web, we believe CC signals will help shape an open AI ecosystem grounded in reciprocity. If we are committed to a future where knowledge remains open, we need to collectively insist on a new kind of give and take. A single preference, uniquely expressed, is inconsequential in the machine age, but together we can demand a different way. So they got 3 sessions where they wanted to have people get involved, talk about it, basically attend a CC Signals town hall. One was held 2 days ago. Another one's coming up on July 29th, and then again on August 15th. I think it should be interesting to see what others have to say who've been playing in the space for a long time, particularly in regards to how the licenses and AI overlap and how we can, in fact, embrace and promote that openness and reciprocity that they're talking about.
Yep. It's definitely. So it said July 29th and then August 15th.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to maybe write a blog post about that. Um, yeah, so one thing that we haven't talked about, and we obviously don't need to decide today, but I want you two and then anybody watching maybe reach out to me, Doug at blocksonic.com, or just leave a comment. Um, we could do aside from these, you know, the course that Evan is putting together. We could have, if it was useful to people, a monthly sort of like chat about. Um, it could be ML AI related. It could be technology related in general. I did try having like um, office hours for a while. I think I was doing it every night for a while, but like I think you came once, Jason, but nobody else ever came, so I just stopped doing it. But maybe if we focused it a little bit more, then it was something that that could be useful for people to just drop by and like talk about, the issues that people are having. Um, so yeah, just think about that. I mean, everybody's busy, so I don't want to if you know it would need to be something that people really want for us to try to do, but maybe it would be useful for people to sort of like get some feedback on things that they're working through, get some questions answered. And things are moving quickly, so everybody's going to have questions about stuff. I have to, for purposes of my job, like I kind of have to present myself as an expert, but like I've never like turned on an MCP server. I can talk about it, but like I've never actually done it. So like everybody's learning. There's so much new technology and stuff that um, you know and it's a comfortable like place for me because like we support 400 products where I work, so like it's like there's nobody on the planet that could be experts in all those things. Like that's just not how like brains work. So you just have to kind of be comfortable doing what I do, not knowing things and being confident in what you know and being confident in what you don't know. So um, you know it would be something that
Doug,
I
that's 90% of practicing law
yeah,
too.
I mean, honestly, it's probably 90% of like any field once you get like high enough in the field, but still, it's just so pronounced. I mean, I guess with like, yeah, if you're looking at all of law and like you're just like a general practice person, it's like, yes, it's like, all of like legal scholarship for the last 2000 years. Like, yeah, just ask me anything, like let's go back to just sitting in codes. I mean, why not? So, yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess the point of that is like, even though like I'm happy to like get up in front of people and talk about this stuff, like even like getting together with folks and talking about it, on a monthly basis would be fine. I mean, I used to go to the Linux user groups every month, and those kind of died during COVID. Um, so yeah, I mean, knowledge transfer is an important part of community, I think. So maybe we'll leave it on that note, unless either of you have anything um, you feel like you must say to the people of Earth here. I don't know. Maybe they're gonna ship it off into space. I don't know. Anything you want to say to Klingons? I don't speak Klingon, so maybe you guys do. So, all right, I'm going to take that as a no. That's Vulcan, Jessica, not Klingon.
No,
I'm gonna
as
press.
close as I get.
I'm gonna press the stop stream button, and then we can enter crime time after that.